Awesome. Well, welcome back to Messed Up Hearts for our second Facebook Live. Just as a reminder, we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. But before we do that, also a friendly note that we are not medical professionals. So what we talk about is just our own experiences living and thriving with congenital heart disease, but nothing we say should be taken as medical advice. If you have any questions, please reach out and consult your cardiologist or your child's cardiologist. So we'll start off with Amanda tonight.
Guys, thanks for joining us again for our second episode. My name is Amanda Harper, and I have hypoplastic right heart syndrome, tricuspid atresia, ASD, VSD, and obviously single ventricle. I also have Fontan-associated liver disease because of my Fontan.
I'm Texas. I will be 39 in 13 days. I was born with TGA, tricuspid atresia, ASD, VSD, dextrocardia, and pulmonary stenosis. I think that covers it. I was also diagnosed with FALD or Fontan-associated liver disease 3 years ago, and that's me.
My name is Laura. I'm 36, also tricuspid atresia, ASD, VSD, pulmonary stenosis, have the Fontan circulation since 1991, and also have some liver disease because of that.
Hello, my name is AJ, and I have I have hypoplastic right heart and pulmonary atresia. I'm 34 years old. I've had two Fontans, a classic and a revision. Actually, no, modified and a revision. And I also have starting stage of the FALD liver. Thanks for the Fontan.
I'm Megan. I'm 32. I have HLHS, VSD, ASD, TGA, and recently coarctation of the aorta. I also have Fontan liver disease, as everyone does, and I am 32.
So we hope everyone had a wonderful Valentine's Day yesterday. Thank you for joining us again and in February Heart Month. So today we're going to talk about scars, both physical and emotional, that come with living with congenital heart disease, as well as limitations that we may have experienced in childhood. So my first question for all of you, my friends, is when did you first notice you had a scar and how did you feel about that?
I think when I first really noticed about my scar was, excuse me, probably, I think it's about middle school age, honestly. That's when I started playing in different sports and stuff like that. And we really didn't talk about it very much, growing up or anything like that. So during middle school and then high school, I was kind of really embarrassed about it.
I've never really thought about my scars, I guess. I don't know if that's because I'm a guy. I have the scar on my right side from my BTT shunt. I kind of always knew it was there, but never really, talked about it. And then once I had my Fontan procedure, it was there, but over the years, it's really gotten a lot lighter. So it's really hard to tell that I actually have one, especially now that I have chest hair. So that also kind of helps cover it up. I do remember being in, I think, 7th or 8th grade and dressing out for PE. And one of the kids next to me, he was like, he thought I got shot because of the chest tube scar, because I have a pretty large chest tube scar. And, I didn't think about it, asking what he was talking about. And he pointed to that. I was like, oh no, that's for my heart surgery. And really, my scars have never really been an issue, or I haven't put much thought in them.
I'm very opposite from you, Texas. I know that my scar has been one of my largest mental hangups with CHD. I always was slightly aware that I had the swoop scar. I call it the swoop, or my Nike swish, on my back from my BTT shunt, but that had been there really since day 2. And it never, I mean, I couldn't really see it, but sometimes I noticed it or it was itchy. But I had the Fontan at 6. And so I was very aware of like what my chest looked like without a scar. And I do remember coming home from having my Fontans and being in the bathtub and looking down and seeing this bright red scar that was covered in surgical tape. And at 6 years old, I was crying because I thought I was ugly. And for the most part, unless I was swimming or at a beach, the scar was something that could easily be concealed. But then, turning 12, 13 in middle school, end of the 90s, those darn V-necks became really popular. But I never wanted to wear them because I never wanted anyone to see that I had a scar because I was really embarrassed about it, to the point where in high school, I did have a laser procedure actually to lighten the redness of my scar. And it worked a little bit, but my scar is still really thick and red. And then when I was 16, I was writing an essay for English, and I was totally up in my feelings at 16 and was telling my parents that my life was so boring and I had nothing to write about. And then I was like, oh, I hate myself because of this scar. And my parents, in all sincerity, were like, well, if it bothers you that much, we'll pay for plastic surgery and it can go away. And at first, I would have thought that that would have been like the best present my parents could have ever given me. But them offering that made me realize like how much in denial I was about my CHD and how much I hated myself. And I didn't want to have those negative feelings anymore. So I ended up writing my essay about my scar and started wearing whatever shirts I wanted after that moment. So now I am really proud of all 10 of my scars, and I don't care if they're visible or covered up.
I'm just like Texas. I really don't remember when I see my scars. I mean, maybe at like 10 years old, maybe when I got into PE and stuff. But I've always been comfortable with my scars. I've never really been embarrassed of them. That's probably because I'm a guy. Tex and I are guys. But I always, like when I got to college and high school, I always described it as my bad boob job to people, because it was always easier to, I always lift up my shirt, say, yeah, I got a bad boob job, and everyone would start laughing, and they would think it was funny and wouldn't believe me until they look. They go, oh, you really kind of do got a bad boob job. I'm like, yeah, it's not really a boob job, but yeah, because I have scars underneath both of them, and then one that goes my back, so it looks like I could have one. So, but it was always a great icebreaker with all my friends. They always loved it, and new people I met. I even say it now to people to my group and these groups and stuff, and to parents. And I always tell them just to tell your kids to embrace it, because it's part of your body. It's yours. And I'll tell you little stories. After my revision, the first thing I had my parents do is take a picture of my scars and send it to all my friends, because I thought it was the coolest thing. My scars, I always think my scars are the coolest thing. But that was the first picture I ever sent my friends. I didn't say I was okay. I just sent all my friends wanted a picture of my scars. So, and yeah.
Mine's similar to Laura. I never showed it, never wanted anybody to know about it, never, nothing. Only 2 or 3 close friends knew about my scar and my car condition in general until I went off to college and basically said, screw it, nobody knows me here. And I started wearing V-neck shirts and things like that. But just like Laura, I never showed it until then.
So Texas kind of mentioned this when he said that a classmate thought maybe he perhaps had been shot by a bullet. But has anyone ever seen your scar and like asked you about it? And do you ever have like, kind of like AJ was saying about the bad boob job, like a witty comeback or a story that you try to pass off besides, I had open heart condition or open heart surgery?
Oh, gosh, I'm just trying to think here. I remember like during middle school and high school, I just didn't, I didn't want anybody to see it. So I would like always try and go in the locker room or before like sport events and stuff like that to get dressed in my uniform. But I do remember this actually happened at work probably about 10 years ago. And someone's like, I wore like a tank top underneath one of my other shirts. And they're like, what is that? And I was like, what? And they're like, did you like cut yourself or something? And I was like, oh, like, yeah, I split myself in half one day. I thought it would be kind of cool just to see what my inside would look like. And then I told them that, yeah, I had a congenital heart defect and I had surgery. So they thought that was kind of cool at the time.
I don't remember too many things. Mostly, just stressing out. And I play basketball now with a bunch of coworkers, and one of the first weeks, we were changing in the locker room. One of them saw it and kind of he's like, "Did you have heart surgery?" He noticed the one down my chest, which I was kind of surprised because it's so faint. And I told him, yeah. I guess I did have a conversation with one of the tattoo artists that was doing my tattoos on my back, because it was near my BTT scar, and he was just kind of asking about that. So the 2 hours I was in the chair, we kind of talked about my heart condition and everything. But really, I've just told all my friends, I have a heart surgery, and they've never really asked about my scars or mentioned it, or I didn't go swimming a lot when I was a kid, or out in public. So maybe if I did that, I've had more interactions, but yeah, I don't have too many scar stories, I guess.
I think one of my favorite scar stories, in a funny way, I was playing poker in my 20s and was wearing a lower cut shirt, and the guy across from me at the poker table, staring at the scar, and then finally asked, he was like, what happened to you? And I was like, oh yeah, so when I was little, I was in Girl Scouts. Total lie, never was in Girl Scouts. And I was like, and we went hiking, and there was a bear, and he just went for me right down the middle. But I'm like, but you should really see that bear now. And the guy, like the whole poker table is just totally buying it. And I was like, no, I've had 2 open heart surgeries when I was 6. That's what the scar is from. But it's kind of fun to make up a little story and see how far people will let you go with it.
I lived in such a small town in like high school and middle school, so everyone knew I had a heart condition, because there's literally only like 300 people in my high school. So I grew up there, so everyone knew I had a high school. But all the little kids always point at the swimming pool. They always ask me what happened. I hate that I said this. I really do. I always said one time I said I actually got shot in the war. I wish I wouldn't have said it, but because now, I had a cousin die in the war, so even, it makes me feel any worse now. But yeah, I always used to say that, and I always love like the older people, like the 80s-year-old people, coming up to you and going, "Wait, you're way too young to have a scar like that." Oh yeah, I've had it since I was 3. Nuh-uh. I go, yeah, I've had it since I was 3 years old, and I love this is love their little. And then we start talking about heart surgeries, which is kind of funny to a 7-year-old, because they're just in awe of that. I was like 21 or 22 at the time, so they're just like in awe that I've had heart surgery at 3 years old.
I never showed my scars, so nobody ever asked me about it until about college. And the people would like look at it, and I'm just like, what are you staring at? But like, nobody ever really asked me about it. I did have a story when I used to teach pre-K. I had a little girl who saw my scar, and she would check on me every single day to make sure it was okay, which I thought was cute. But yeah.
Kind of similar to Megan, I'm a teacher, and in my student teaching internship, I was working with some kids, and one of them had a more significant disability and a little bit of a lower cognitive IQ. And he saw my scar one day and he looks at me, he goes, "You in the Navy?" And I was like, "No, I'm not in the Navy." And kind of looks at the scar again. He goes, Grandpa's in the Navy. You in the Navy?" And I was like, "No, like both you and, both me and your grandpa had open heart surgery." But I mean, bless that kid. He thought that it was a sign of being in the Navy.
So we do have one question that just came across. And it says, do any of you think the way your parents raised you changed the way you viewed your scar?
I guess for me, it probably does. I mean, because we didn't really talk about my heart condition all that much, except for, the yearly appointment, or if there was something, if I didn't feel well. So I just kind of accepted it was part of me and, moved on with it.
I think for me, it was more of not the way they raised me, because we talked about it and like I knew about it, but it was more of a self-conscious kind of thing, my self-esteem, things like that. I think as a woman, it happens a lot that a lot of women are self-conscious about it versus the men. It's more like tough looking and things like that. And we don't really have that side of that.
Chicks dig scars type of thing.
Yeah, I would agree with Megan in that sense. Like, it was nothing that, I was raised to be ashamed about or to hide. And, looking back, I do wonder if there's something my parents could have done differently. But I think, again, part of it was just the way I was mentally processing everything that comes with living with a CHD. And although no one's ever been like blatantly rude to me about my scar, it's still something I feel self-conscious about. And even, several years ago when I was, mid 20s and was totally chill about my scar, I was getting ready for a friend's wedding. I was a bridesmaid, and another bridesmaid was doing my makeup because I suck at doing my own makeup. And she started to put foundation on my chest to cover up my scar. And she kind of approached it awkwardly. And I was like, "Nope, like that's okay. Like, I want my scar to be seen in the pictures." Like, I knew my friend getting married, knew I had a scar. It wasn't something I wanted to cover up, but it was kind of this awkward interaction. And, here we are in the 20s, but she kind of made the assumption that maybe I wouldn't want it in pictures, but nope, I did.
Yeah, my parents never really did anything. Then when I was younger, they told me I had scars, but really, I've always embraced it. I've never really looked down on them. Now, my parents have never really talked to me about how to look at my scars. I just always had the feeling they're part of me. They're part of my body. They, more or less, I view them as they saved my life when I was younger. So I'll be proud of them because they saved my life.
Amanda, anything to add?
I agree with both of you ladies. Definitely, it's a kind of like a mental challenge for me. Is something that I'm not really proud of. I'm a lot better than I am today about it, but it's just something that we deal with.
So also part of this episode was any sort of internal scars or limitations. So any stories from childhood about limitations growing up with a CHD and how that may have impacted your life, maybe a little bit more negatively, hopefully turned out to be positive.
Well, for sports wise, I've done cheerleading, and the way that our cheerleading squad is like in our town here, we have to do like hall laps and then we have to lift weights. So I would always cheat, and like our halls were like connected, but they would have like a little stairwell case that you could go and hide in. So I would like run down the stairs and then hide in the stairwell until everyone else passed. And then I would cut across the other stairwell because I found a little extra hallway that we weren't allowed to go down. And none of the cheerleading coaches watched us, so I would just do it. And they were like, man, oh my gosh, she's like so fast. That's how I would get out of it. And I never wanted anybody to know that I had open heart surgery or that I had scars. So I would always either change into my uniform at home before I went to the games, or would wear it on the bus, or I would like, hey, I gotta go to the bathroom real quick. And then I would hurry up and change real fast. And same thing with like gym. I did that too. Like constantly, I like always had to go to the bathroom. I know they probably thought I had like major bladder problems or something, but I was constantly in the bathroom or constipated. I don't know. I just was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And then I couldn't really hide it very much. Showing horses and stuff like that. Of course, we didn't have to change in front of everybody, thank goodness. But, I had like my own horse trailer and stuff like that to go in and change in and out of. So that was pretty good. But other than that, sports, that was about it for me.
I know I had a lot more limitations earlier in my life. I didn't have my Fontan until I was 8. And so, during school, between kindergarten, I guess 3rd grade, because I had it between the summer, 3rd grade and 4th grade. I really couldn't do PE at all, so I don't recall what I did. So I'm assuming I just kind of sat on the sidelines or they had me do something else. Then after my Fontan, I was limited. The only sport I could do was basketball for some reason. That was the only one that I would get cleared to do. I'm guessing they thought maybe I would get elbowed in the chest, or I'm not really sure what the thinking was, because I could play basketball, but not football or baseball, lacrosse, or competitively swim. So that kind of stuck with me. Growing up in Texas, where high school football is king. Everybody wants to play football and that. So that kind of sucked. But I was able to be the manager for at least 7th and 8th grade and hang out with my friends there and be part of the team. And then played basketball through 8th grade. And then unfortunately I stayed short and slow and everybody else got tall and fast. So that kind of ended my career of basketball. And then the other limitations I was put on was no roller coasters, but now my adult cardiologist, he cleared me to go ahead and do roller coasters if I feel like it and everything. So that's kind of a plus. But really the biggest thing that just stuck with me was not playing football. That was probably the thing that hurt the most. And that kind of stuck with me just because, all my friends growing up, high school, even, college, they talked about, playing football and their high school career. And I was like, well, I didn't have that. So that's kind of the thing that stuck with me the most, but I've lived with it.
Yeah, when I was little, my parents enrolled me in ballet and tap. And I did soccer. Soccer is a pretty big thing out on the West Coast. And my whole team of soccer knew I had a heart condition, so I would never play forward. I was always a defender, but not a goalie, because can't take the soccer ball, to the chest or anything like that. But when I was in 2nd grade, like if you wanted to be popular at my elementary school, you were a jock and you were a runner. So 2nd grade jogathon came around and I had it in my head that I wanted to like up my cool status. So I thought I would try to run the most laps. Really great idea, but my follow through. So I over pushed my cardiac output. I don't even know how many laps I did run because I ended up falling over on the side of the track and just vomiting. So obviously, I stopped. So it is kind of that hard thing where, like as a kid growing up with CHD, like you want to do what everyone else is doing, but you also know that you do have these physical limitations, but you're a kid and your 8-year-old brain says, you know, be cooler, run more, and you're going to try it. Not really going to work out super well in the end. And even my parents were just like, oh, what were you thinking type of thing. And then, you know, I think it's a product of being born in the 80s and raised in the 90s when especially these single ventricles were still new in the sense of people with single ventricles surviving and thriving. So when I entered middle school, I was told to stop playing soccer. And looking back, I realized it was because my cardiologist was trying to protect me in the sense that he knew I wouldn't physically be able to compete with my peers at the same level. And that, you know, kind of like Texas, that did really hurt for a while because I really did love soccer, but it opened up the door for theater, which I'm still passionate about to this day. But then in college, I was like, I can play soccer. So I played on a, you know, co-ed rec league, and we were horrible at playing, but we had so much fun. And we finally won one game when we just started running around the field pretending we were airplanes, and the other team didn't know how to like interact with that. So we ended up scoring 2 goals and winning. And I've played recreational soccer as an adult as well. And I just, again, I know my limits. I tap out, sub out easily, but it's fun to still be involved.
I'm a huge sports guy. I love sports to my core, but when I was little, I played everything. I even played soccer, but they put me as goalie. I don't know why you put a 6, 7-year-old as goalie, but I don't really remember it, but there's a picture showing me as a goalie. I'm like, why did they put a guy with a, I don't get it, but I've only played that. I think I played that for 1 year, but I played baseball and rec basketball. I played so much sports. Then about 7th grade, right before I got to junior high, junior high, the doctor says you can't play anymore. So then I had to quit everything, and I became manager. 7th, 8th grade year for basketball. I liked football, but I didn't be a manager for football. Then I got into high school my freshman, sophomore year. Then I was a manager for basketball team there. But before, when I was told I couldn't do any sports, I really got into singing and theater like Laura. So I love singing. My mom sings all the time. So I always loved singing. I even got a singing scholarship to my community college I went to right out of high school. So got a pretty good sweet deal there. But I mean, I moved schools a lot when I was growing up. So I mean, I didn't have like I really don't have friends from when I was really little. I mean Facebook friends, but whoever talks to them, you know. So from elementary school. But when I got in college, I played basketball with my friends all the time. They knew about my heart condition. So if I ever had to tap out, I'd just walk off the court and they just sub someone in. So they always knew my limitations. They know I'd always need a break. I played flag football for a while and college for a while, but right now, as an adult, I play a lot of disc golf, frisbee golf. So that's a good exercise for a heart patient because you throw your disc and you have to go find it. So in golf, I played a lot of golf in high school too. So that's about the only sport I could do with my doctor telling me I was okay with. So
See, I had a different way of growing up, I guess. I played softball for 12 years. I played soccer for 6. The only limitation that I really had was when I wanted to play basketball because all my other friends were playing it and I just couldn't keep up with it. I think it all depends on the sport you're playing, the position you're playing. Because with softball, you're running 3 bases and that's pretty much it. Well, 4 bases, but like it is short distances, at least how I saw it. Soccer, I was always defense, so it wasn't like a ton of running. But basketball is pretty much consistently running, and I just could not keep up with that. But I found my love in softball, and I stuck with it for years. So until I weightlifted and hurt my back. So, you know, that's it.
Just a reminder too, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I don't know, Amanda, if we have any.
Yes, one question did come, actually a couple of them, we'll go one at a time. Did any of you experience bullying for being different with scars?
Yeah, I
Go
did
ahead,
for
Megan.
sure. It wasn't, so I didn't show my scar. The reason I really didn't show my scar is because I also have vocal cord paralysis. So I would be made fun of for my voice. So to me, if I'm being made fun of for my voice, why would I show my scar to add to the bullying? Is my thoughts on it. I was always asked if I was sick, what's wrong with me? Why does my voice sound like that? Do I have laryngitis? All the time. Still get it to this day. And so at that point in school, I just never showed my scar to add to the bullying. And I kind of just like let it be. I was very shy also in school, so that didn't help very much.
I never got made fun of my scars, because I mean, I showed them I didn't really care about, I mean, I didn't care if anyone knew, but I really got bullied because I didn't play sports in a small town and I moved a lot. So I moved to like 3 schools in my career going to school. So I really didn't have friends to go back on. Then I sang, and singing choir wasn't the cool kids. So I wasn't really part of the cool kids. So really, I didn't really get bullied because of my scars.
Yeah, I never got like bullied because I had a heart condition or because of my scars. But I think, well, number one, I think I was more self-conscious about my scars and my heart conditions than my peers. But like end of elementary school, when like I couldn't play soccer up at that next competitive level, I did kind of lose my friend base because there started to be now like a difference and a distance between us, but no one ever, was like, it's because you have half a heart and we don't like you. And then part of that like difference and dissonance did really stick with me and impact me. And again, like I would never want to repeat like my teen years and just the hormones and the way that your brain functions or doesn't function at that age. For whatever reason, when I was in 7th grade, I thought that taking medication made me different. And part of it was I did have a medication that I took at school, and that was the only one I couldn't figure out how to not take. But I didn't take my meds for almost a year when I was 13. My dad figured out within a couple months, because he was my pharmacist, and he noticed I hadn't asked for a refill. So again, like not a really like well thought out plan. I was just like, well, if I don't take meds, I'm completely normal and I don't have a heart condition. Then my mom found out a couple months later after I started hiding my meds, and she was rightfully so very upset and angry. But yeah, there was just kind of like a difference because like I didn't go to gym class in middle school, but then I really wanted to play in like the 8th grade versus teacher softball game. So I just showed up and they were like, huh? And I was like, oh no, I'm not planning on running these bases, but I can hit that thing. And I did. I hit a home run. So I was like, never mind, I can like slow walk the bases. And everyone was really shocked because they were like, oh, we didn't know you had these skills. Now I'll get weird smirks. Again, I'm a teacher, but honestly, like the way that my adult coworkers sometimes react to my scar is more kind of jarring than a child's reaction. But I do like it when sometimes, a 4th grader came up to me one day and looked at my scar and was like, wow, that's ugly. And then walked on by and I was like, but never outright bullied, but I did feel different.
I guess I was lucky. I was never bullied because of my heart condition or my scars, or at least if I was, I don't recall it. And it's probably like suppressed the back of my memories to come out one day or something. But, so I grew up in larger towns. And so, I mean, not everybody played football, not everybody played basketball or whatever. And I was kind of friends with, a bunch of different groups. So, during certain season, I would go hang out with my other friends because my other friends were doing, sports. I got really into music. But really, I mean, I guess I got more bullied for looking like Macaulay Culkin when I was younger than I did from my heart condition. So, everybody asking me to do the whole putting my hands on my cheeks and screaming. But yeah, I guess, I was lucky when it came to my heart condition. No one really bullied me, and, all my friends were understanding and were there for me.
I have to say, I really was never bullied for like my heart condition because I was trying to not let anybody know about it or my scars or anything like that. But I do remember, back in the 80s and 90s, those Holter monitors, the ones that we had to wear were like a tape recorder. And I'm serious, it wasn't an actual tape recorder. And you had to, like, when you got to the end of the tape, you had to take it out, flip it, and put it back in. And there's a couple of times I noticed, like, some of the teachers, they're like, we can't have, I don't know what they called them back then. I don't remember. I think I'm just gonna say tape recorders. We can't have those in class. And I'm like,
The Walkmans.
yes, thank you, the Walkmans. We can't have Walkmans in class. And I'm like, it's not a Walkman. Well, I just saw the tape. Well, okay, then I don't have headphones on. So it's a heart monitor. I was just trying to be like, it's a heart monitor, not like letting the whole class know about it. And for a while there, it took like a couple of times because I had to wear it like all week. And she pulled me around in the class, kind of in the corner, and I showed her like one of the patches was right here. She's like, oh, okay. I'm just like, oh, so embarrassing, but those things. But I am so glad now that they are smaller and we don't have to wear those great big huge giant things. And then they have a huge strap or hook it to your belt. And I'm like, that looked like a side fanny pack or something.
Yeah,
All the
like
cords.
all the wires, all the cords, and it was too big in the 90s to even fit in the basket on my little bicycle, and I just wanted to bike.
And you had to
Now-
sleep you sleep on your back. You couldn't like roll over, otherwise it was
Oh,
like,
they're so uncomfortable.
My doctors would get mad at me because I play astronaut and hit all the buttons all the time. So they go, "Oh, you have to wear a couple more days now. Quit hitting the buttons." I'm like, "Why? They're cool."
It is kind of like, so in high school, I found just a really incredible group of friends. They all knew about my heart condition. It was no big deal. And I am grateful that I had that in high school because I had to bring oxygen tanks for several months of my senior year in high school. So like you could hide a Holter monitor with a baggy sweatshirt, but it was going to be really hard to hide the green oxygen tank that rolled behind me. But then for women, Megan and Amanda, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but with the old Holter monitors that still had the wire, you'd get like the fishnet kind of tank top that the hospital would give you to keep the wires closer to your chest. And at one point I was, sharing this information with my friends and they're like, well, can I have a fishnet tank top? And I was like, I'll ask next time I go. And so I was like, hey, my friends really want fishnet tank tops. So they did. They cut a bunch of them for my friends to wear because fishnets were also big in the end of the 90s, early 2000s.
I remember like some of the wires when they come loose, they would actually like beep. I
Yes.
was like, oh, it was so annoying. Like I would
Yeah.
like hit it wrong or something in class and they'd be beeping and I'm like, oh no, oh crap.
Or when you're in the middle of the night, you're sleeping and it beeps and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you need to put it back on.
So
having to take off the leads after. You like had a shower and like they would rip the skin off and
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Those stickers sucked back then. They're better now. I can tear them off now, maybe because I'm older. But yeah, I actually when I was like really little, right after my Fontan, I was like 4 or 5. I left mine on all day because I did not want to take them off. So my parents had put me in the bathtub and take like rubbing alcohol and rub them off. And I was screaming because I was 4 or 5 years old. But I learned my lesson. They said I did not leave them on anymore. But that's what I don't like about the solar monitors is those stupid patches. Oh, they suck.
Yeah. And I remember too, like the little booklets that they would give you, that you had to write down everything. I mean, like literally everything. You know, I asked my doctor, it's like, okay, so I have to write down what I eat. He goes, no, not what you ate, just when you ate. And then when you go to the bathroom. So I was like, so I have to write down when I have to go poop. And he just starts laughing. And I'm like, it's a serious question. He's like, yes, we need to know that. And I was like, oh my God.
I think in my middle school years, I was actually, I wouldn't say banned, but they didn't put a Holter monitor on me for 2 years because they would just get 13-year-old girls sitting and pouting. And they were like, Laura, when we wear this, we want to see like what your heart is doing when you're active. And I was like, well, I don't want to wear it outside my house. So then when I became more confident and comfortable with my heart condition, I was like, okay, monitor, you and me and these wires are going everywhere today. And they're like, you can just have a normal day. And I was like, what? You told me to take it out on the town. Which I did go rock climbing once when it still had the wires. That's when I was grateful for the fishnet tank top. Any other questions in the chat?
Yes, we do have another one. Do you ever hear any other CHD or that has the same heart defect as you? If you have limitations, but they don't have limitations.
I think that goes for like everybody, that someone's good at something, but other people can't do it. And that's the hardest part about CHD, is that we can all have the same condition, but we all won't be able to do the same things. That's why I think people have a hard time. Like they look at me or Laura or Texas or any of us and say, oh, they're doing this, but it doesn't mean that your kid can do that too, because we're all so different. And I think that's the hardest part about CHD in general.
My biggest problem is I'm overweight. So that's why I can't do most of the things that Megan and Laura and Texas do all the time in the workouts. But I'm getting better. I have a 2.5-year-old son, so he keeps me very busy. We go to the park every day now. He tires me out. He never gets tired. He's heart healthy, thank goodness. But he always gets so tired. Finally, about 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, it's time to go home. Let's go home and go get a snack.
Yeah, I think within CHD, going off of what Megan was saying, like you can't compare apples to apples because every apple is going to be a different variety. It's going to be a Fuji, it's going to be a Gala, it's going to be a Pizzazz. And when I was growing up, my cardiology team explained it to my parents that even within a CHD, so like tricuspid atresia, you're going to fall into a third, either the bottom third, the middle third, or the top third. And they said after my Fontan, the way that my heart was functioning, I fell into the top third tier of patients with tricuspid atresia or a single ventricle. And that's not the case for everyone. I have been volunteering or working as a summer camp director for a camp for kids with heart conditions for the last 13 years. And I've, sadly seen single ventricles, 8, 12, 17 pass because of their CHD. And here I am, 20 years older with the same diagnosis, but I can't compare us.
I think it also depends on the doctor. A lot of CHDers I've met in the last few years that have something similar to me, they were told by their cardiologist when they were younger that they could ride roller coasters, they could play football, they could play, these different sports. And, mine was, no roller coasters, only basketball. So I think it also depends on who the doctor is as well.
Yeah, I agree. Every patient is going to be different. There's no one the same at all. Everyone's everyone's different. We do have another question. It says, aside from your CHD, do any of you battle any other illness?
I have a genetic iron overload condition called hemochromatosis, which was actually diagnosed after I had my gallbladder out and had a liver biopsy. I fell out of care for 10 years, and then I started to see a regular cardiologist where I live. And then I had some gallbladder issues and I had to have it out, and that's when they discovered my liver and fall. But with that process, they discovered the hemochromatosis, which it stores iron. It stores iron in the body, especially the liver. And so I have to go about every 2 to 3 months to get a phlebotomy to take my blood out to lower my ferritin.
I have Gilbray's syndrome. It's like a bilirubin thing, it's inadequate bilirubin in your liver. I found out I had it because I crashed a 3-wheeler and broke my collarbone. And they took my blood and they go, hey, you have this. I'm like, okay, what is it? They're like, you really do nothing with it. It's just gonna fluctuate and you live with it. I'm like, cool, just like my heart condition. I just live with it and go to doctors. But I don't have to see a specialist or anything about it. If it gets too out of whack, they said, then they'll have to go to a specialist. But I go to a liver doctor now because of my liver associated like Fontan thing. So he checks it too. So I think that's the only other thing I've had.
When I was born and they diagnosed the tricuspid atresia, they also discovered that I only congenitally had a single kidney. Luckily, that kidney functions well, but I've also had horrible sinuses. So I've had 3 sinus surgeries from high school to now. And I would just say, like, it's always important when you go in for any sort of surgery to make sure that you have a cardiac anesthesiologist who knows your cardiac anatomy and can properly do the anesthesia on you. So I have had to have been very aware of my heart condition when having surgeries for cardiac related things, which I think now I've actually had more non-cardiac surgeries than I've had cardiac related surgeries, just because of, sinuses and tonsils out and things like that.
I found out only a couple years ago that I have a deviated septum. Didn't know that until I had started having massive nosebleeds for hours. So then I ended up having a surgery a couple years ago. Knock on wood, everything's been great since. But that's the only other thing that I've had since then.
I don't think, I guess maybe nobody's really told me, but I don't really think I have anything else besides my CHD. And obviously my liver issues from the CHD. We do occasionally have nosebleeds, but that's just from the oxygen. And I know I've had like a ton of radiation when I was younger, because that's just what they did. And I know that it's kind of messed up my insides a little bit. But other than that, I don't have anything else. And it looks like we do have another question. Do you have to be really careful when you get sick or the flu?
I think when I was younger, I got sick a lot just because I had to get my tonsils and my adenoids taken out. Just that's the reason I was sick all the time. My tonsils were just huge and all of that. Since I got them taken out, I really haven't had any issues with sickness. I mean, the only problem I had was I got the flu probably 6 years ago and I ended up in the ER because my oxygen was low. since then, that was it. And like, I take my vitamin C, my zinc, like all of it. And then I also do a neti pot every morning, which helps with my sinuses. So I definitely encourage that.
I think I could do an entire Facebook Live just on this topic. So when I was little, before my Fontan, I got pneumonia like it was going out of style. So between chronic childhood pneumonia and then being on a ventilator for 2 weeks after my Fontan, my lungs just kind of suck. um, and so again, bronchitis, pneumonia. Got them, I still get them very often. I once had pleurisy. I thought the doctors made that up. It's a viral infection of the lining of your lungs. When I first became a teacher, I got bronchitis once a month just because of being, around new children and the germ exposure. I had the flu a couple years ago, influenza B. It took me 3 months to fully recover, mainly from the pulmonary impact. And my mom always said I'm a cardiac kid that presents like a pulmonary kid. And even when I went to meet my new primary care doctor, she's like, "Are you sure you don't have cystic fibrosis?" And I was like, "Yep, positive." But my lungs have been pretty impacted by everything cardiac wise. So when I do get sick, I usually try to tell people that it takes me about time and a half or double time to recover than a healthy 4-chambered heart individual. But yeah, I mean, you do what you do. I'm happy I teach high schoolers now because they tend to stay home with their germs.
I I got sick a lot. I get sick a lot now. I get a lot of sinus infections all the time now. But when I was younger, I lived in small towns, so I never had never lived really close to a big city. So none of those doctors really knew what to do with me because of my heart condition. So they put me on all these antibiotics, all these things. So like when I was a kid, my medicine cabinet was full of medication because they did not know it worked. But nowadays I just take Mucinex and get a Z-Pack every now and then, usually helps. But I got pneumonia really bad one year, but they don't know if it was pneumonia or heart failure because I had one symptom. I don't never run a fever. I had like one symptom. I don't think I was congested or one of the symptoms you could have, but I never run a fever. I'm always like 97.4, 97.5. But now since I got older, I've learned what medicines work. I learned what works for me. So, and my allergies suck as I got older too, which stink. I thought moving to Arizona would help my allergies, but they actually made them worse. So could be pretty mad about that from Kansas. But nowadays I just take Mucinex and try to get better. That's about it.
Yeah, it usually takes me, about maybe time and a half to get better, or I take a little bit more time to rest before I try to get back into, my regular schedule. I did get mono my freshman year of college and ended up in the hospital for a few days and then back home for, I think, probably 3 or 4 weeks. And that's probably the sickest I've been since my Fontan. I do remember getting, sorry, my cat's trying to eat me. I do remember getting, sick a lot when I was younger. A lot of stomach aches and everything. But since I had my gallbladder out, a lot of my stomach issues have gone away. So I guess yay for that. But yeah.
I know for me, I get sick very easily. Like a couple of years ago, we went to the doctor's office, and after my appointment, we were getting ready to check out, and there was a lady in there, and she was coughing, and my husband and I just kind of looked at each other, and he knew exactly what I was thinking. And we left, and he's like, "Oh, great, now you're gonna get sick." And sure enough, I did. I had a really bad cold. I think it was more than just a cold though, but anyways, and then I get sick quite often if I'm around other sick people. And sometimes it takes me a while to get regenerated.
Any other questions in the chat?
I don't see any other questions in the chat.
So I know we've talked about this as a group because the 5 of us are friends outside of Facebook Live, although we have yet to meet in person. So we are hoping to one day make that happen. But we've also talked about childhood and the fact that none of us ever got a Make-A-Wish. And I say that because, again, Lady Dolly Parton, if you are listening, I think I decided at 34 that if someone granted me a Make-A-Wish, that my Make-A-Wish would be to go to Dollywood for a day and meet you. So I'm just gonna say, if you, Dolly Parton, you do so many great things for humanity, but if you would like to grant my Make-A-Wish, I would be forever grateful. I, again, think you are a gem to this country. You are a wonderful human being. You do so many great things for others. Like now you're paying for higher education for your employees. Like Dolly Parton is just what she does with her fame and her money. Other people should take note of. I really do highly respect you, Dollywood or Dolly, and I really do love roller coasters. So if you would like to send me and my friends to Dollywood, I would just be very grateful. So I'm always going to plug that while I'm here on Facebook. I don't know if anyone else has ever thought about what their 30 or 40-year-old Make-A-Wish would be, but I know I put some great amount of thought into mine.
Could mine be like paying back my student loans?
Oh my gosh, society, Megan's Make-A-Wish would be paying back student loans.
Listen, they're up there, okay?
I'll jump on that one also.
I'll pay my wife's off. She has a
There you
lot
go.
more than I do.
I really haven't thought about like a Make-A-Wish or anything like that, but I think it would be awesome if all of us could go to Dollywood and meet each other. That'd be cool.
Or Vegas.
You said that last
Florida,
time, or
you
Vegas.
just come to Florida.
Oh, Florida
West
doesn't
Coast
have
is
Dolly
better.
Parton.
I agree, West Coast is better.
Ah, I'm all in it for Dollywood.
So if anybody has contact with Dolly, make sure you tag her or share this.
I'm
And
gonna be
we- and-
shameless about it.
Does she have a TikTok? We could tag her. We could put this video on TikTok and tag her in it.
We could. But I
Also,
think
any producers from SNL are out there watching, I think that you should have Miley Cyrus as the host and then Dolly Parton as the musical guest. And then they can do a duet together because we all know that Miley Cyrus is Dolly Parton's goddaughter. And I also think that that would be really awesome. Also, I'd love to go to Saturday Night Live and maybe tour it. So I'm just throwing out potential Make-A-Wish. Again, I'm 36. I'm not salty about this at all. I'm just saying.
And we will definitely make this shareable. It should be shareable now, but we'll make this public. I will make sure that this is public so everyone can share it. Does anybody else have any last minute questions they want to ask us?
Texas, do you want to introduce the topic for next month?
Yes, so our topic for next month is navigating education, 504 IEPs, and other services that your child could possibly get. We'll talk about our experiences, and then Megan and Laura both work in education, so they have a little bit better insight. And then I'll scream across the room to my wife because she's a special ed teacher, so I can get her opinions also.
Yeah, there will be some professional expertise brought in next week from Megan and I.
Yes.
Next month, not next week.
That's right. We're doing this once a month. So yeah, I
Yes.
think March 21st, which is a Monday, is when we plan to do our next Facebook Live. And thank you everyone for joining us today. and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
See
Thanks,
ya.
everyone.
Again, Dolly Parton,
ya.
I love you.
Bye.